How's it going, guys? Welcome back. I've got a bit of a different video today. Today I'm actually no content in terms of gameplay. I want to have a little chat because I saw this one here. Now this is the current for the next patch preview. Yorick was announced on last patch's nerfs and it didn't go through in the end, and I got word that it was just taken out. Didn't mean it was going to be vetoed because I anticipated it would come back in this patch. Now, Yorick being nerfed, I get it. It does make sense. If you bring up his win rates, look, he's actually performing quite well. Like 52% with a 2%, 3% pick rate, it's pretty good. But the problem is actually his low elo. The problem is when you start bringing it down and you start going to bronze and iron, you start seeing upwards of 53, 54. It starts to get a bit ridiculous, right? High elo ranges, Yorick has never been good, but for some reason lately, these stats are showing that Yorick is actually good. Even if you bring it up on his next last patch, above 50% win rate in Diamond is not something that has been very often. Most of the time, his Master Plus, Diamond Plus has always been below 50%. So people are definitely performing well on Yorick at the moment. The question is why? Right? Why are people doing well on Yorick so much? I think it's a combination of the fact that lethality is quite strong on him. So you can see this lethality build for anyone that's playing Diamond Plus. The general pick rate, most of the time, is a lethality build, which has the highest games played and a pretty decent win rate. But I think lethality is actually a bait. I think if you're Slog Dog, you can make it work. I think if you're pretty good at Yorick, you can make it work. But I think lethality Yorick is actually a bait. Bruiser Yorick actually shows a significantly higher win rate in individual items. If you're actually looking at the items, I think the secret to this build is not the Profane. I think it's the Grudge. I think the problem with lethality Yorick, and that also amplifies off Bruiser Yorick, is they both share a common item, and that's Grudge. Grudge is OP. It has always been OP. And when they nerfed it to remove the slow when they're above 50% health, it was still OP. People just didn't bother buying it. And this current iteration is basically a cheaper version of last season's Grudge. It is just broken. It is flat out broken on Yorick. This effect needs to be looked at. In my view, if you actually looked at this item, I think you'd be able to look at Yorick in general. Because he's winning items at the moment. In 40% of games, people pick Grudge and they win 53% of the time. That is nuts value. That is insane. But if you actually go into lower elo, and let's go like bronze last patch, right? 54% win rate, so it's quite high. If you look at the most picked, it's lethality, right? So people are most playing lethality. But look at the win rates. Bruiser is actually higher than what lethality is. So that brings two options, right? What is Riot going to nerf? I imagine it's going to be a placebo upfront nerf. They're going to do something regarding his ghoul damage. They're either going to take away damage on his E. They're going to reduce the damage amp by 10% or something like that. They might increase the E cooldown. Regardless, and you can come back to this timestamp after the patch gets announced and after 2 patches time, it's not going to do shit all. Unfortunately, Yorick suffers from one major problem, which is that his kit itself is too punishing to verse. Yorick is too hard to verse as a top lane champion. When you've got a split push champion, it basically forces someone to play your version of League of Legends. That's what split push is. You've got 95% of the roster that is dedicated to team fights, and then you have a 5% that go, hey, I don't want that. I want to play split push instead. Now, the enemy top might have picked something that plays team fights, and now all of a sudden they can't play that style. So what happens in a game of League is situations happen and occur regardless of how the Yorick plays, where he will get the opportunity to play split push. And I mean bad recalls, I mean people dying for no reason, I mean the Yorick playing well and getting a solo kill. Or the enemy top laner goes, I want a group, and then Yorick all of a sudden is 1v0 in the top lane. These situations always happen in the top lane. People don't realize, but Yorick is so dominant in elo brackets that are below plat gold because you're always going to get that opportunity to split push. And that's what changes the higher you go. Once you start getting into Diamond, people start going, I'll counterpick Yorick. I'll pick something like Fiora or Tryndamere that also wants to split push. That way he's never unmatched and he's always one-on-one. Or what they do is they go, I'll pick something like Shen, but I'll have that TP ready so I can get back to that top lane in time for him. So at the higher the elo you go, the less opportunities you get to split push. But that's where it comes skill level of the champion and the player comes into play. So that's when, like, take Slogdog for Slogdog's a perfect example of this. He plays split push lethality Yorick, right? He doesn't group. He barely groups. Why is Slogdog able to make it work so well in high elo? He can make it work so well because Slogdog has an uncanny ability of reducing his opponent's mental IQ, EQ, by 50. For some reason, I've never seen someone get so many solo kills in top lane. He has an uncanny ability to get solo kills in top lane. He makes those openings himself, right? He can get that opportunity to push the top lane in. So then all of a sudden, he takes that whole that whole answer to Yorick, which is to just face him in the top lane and make sure he can't push, and he completely takes that away. Now all of a sudden, other people have to deal with Yorick, and his team starts swinging on the side lanes. So unless you're able to consistently get solo kills in that type, it doesn't matter how much macro play you have. You're generally in higher elo brackets, you're always going to get answered, and you're going to run out of problems like that. So what's the solution? Personally, I think the solution to Yorick is not an easy one to get. The actual solution is going to be a mini rework. He needs to be changed because there's too much agency in his pushing. Unfortunately, once Yorick's Maiden comes out, his skill expression goes down. You don't need any skill expression. Once the Maiden is out, you can autopilot. You could right-click and leave your keyboard. Your Maiden and Ghouls will do the job for you alongside you. It's not like any Tibbers where you press R and then you need to redirect the Tibbers. Maiden just follows whatever you hit, right? So you can tell Tibbers to go somewhere, but then if you need to redirect her, you need to issue commands midway. Yorick is kind of like his Ghouls just follow whatever you're doing. There's no need to recast any spells, no need to recast any abilities. His pets just follow you. And that's probably the biggest problem. Maiden raises Ghouls for you. His Q becomes obsolete late game unless you want to use a Q reset or unless you're splitting Maiden. Maiden raising Ghouls is probably the single biggest problem with Yorick. People don't like the whole point of it. The whole me raising this as an issue. I've raised it before on my channel and the feedback I got was insane. It was actually kind of hilarious. But Maiden auto-raising Ghouls is literally terrible for balance. Imagine you're versing Corki with R, right? He's got 7 charges on his R. Imagine throughout the team fight, he was able to get 7 charges back just by doing nothing. Literally just by participating in a fight, by being around them. He doesn't need to attack. He doesn't need to do anything. He just needs to be in a team fight. Every time his teammates get a kill, he gets max refills. That's what it's like versing Yorick in the middle of a minion wave. It doesn't matter if you kill his Ghouls. Minions inevitably die from collateral or by minion damage, and all of a sudden he's got an entire army ready to go again. Like having this auto raise, taking away that Q skill expression of having to get Graves, having to land E or recast Q, it just minimizes how much Yorick needs to do to punish. And that brings up my third point here, which is punish. Yorick is the single-handedly best punishing champion in this game. Not a single champion punishes better than Yorick. Apart from maybe... No, it's Yorick. There's no one better. I was thinking Trundle. But if you do a bad recall, your tower's gone. If you do a bad TP, your tower's gone. If you leave Yorick for 1 second in the top lane, and he's got even a bruiser build at the moment, which pushes really quickly, your tower's gone. Like, you can lose 2 towers just from having someone split push. Now, this isn't a Yorick problem. This is actually a split push problem. It's not a Yorick is OP. That's why he punishes hard. It's the fact that the game state itself, the way that League plays out is when you've got 5 people on your enemy team that group around Dragon, your 4 teammates group around Dragon, the Yorick or the Trundle or the Fiora goes top. If that doesn't work out perfectly for the enemy team, it's a loss. So if someone is not on comms when you've got an uncoordinated team, someone gets caught, someone does a bad engage, all of a sudden, this team fight breaks out and it's chaos. The 5-man team don't get what they want out of it, or it's less than optimal. Maybe they lose 3 but get Dragon. All of a sudden, Yorick's then amplified that penalty by getting a tier 2 tower. This is why split push is so OP in solo queue, but it's not really that good in competitive. So the answer to how to fix Yorick is going to be a twofold. You need to address his kit for one, but more importantly, you actually kind of have to address split push. You kind of have to address the fact that split push is very strong in this game when you got people that aren't on one mind, when people don't have access to comms to talk to each other, and you've got people muting themselves before the game starts. You're always going to have problems with split pushers. Yorick just happens to penalize people a lot harder than the average split pusher, and I think addressing that would probably be better. My proposed suggestion would probably be, apart from a mini rework, I have talked about the possibility of changing Yorick's ghoul ratios from an AD ratio to a hybrid AD and HP ratio. So you need to build bruiser items to get the most damage out of him, rather than building straight lethality. That would kind of put people over from building lethality into building bruiser, which would fix the lethality problem. But my problem is actually, I wonder if that would actually have a detrimental effect, because you can see his bruiser rate is actually higher than lethality. So I wonder if all 37% of people that do this did this instead, would this stay at 56%? Because if it does, then it's actually a bad change. It actually makes him worse and stronger, because the lethality build is actually suboptimal. So look, I don't really have many ideas. I think there's a lot of visual issues, like how to click the ghouls, how to click the wall, that could be addressed very easily. But knowing Riot, they're just going to do a flat numbers change. They're probably going to nerf ghouls and think it'll do something. At this rate, I don't think it's going to do anything. So I figured I'd make a quick video discussing it a little bit. Let me know your thoughts. Put in the comments. Let me know what you think should happen and what you think should change. Because I think lethality is a problem, but it's mainly the way lethality interacts with towers. That is probably the problem. Yorick pushing towers is very hard. And lethality just emphasizing Ghoul's base damage, and the way Yorick hits that tower with his Q is probably a bigger problem than Ghouls attacking a champion. So I think, in a way, the way Ghouls interact with towers and objectives with lethality is probably a bigger issue than the fact that Ghouls do too much damage to champions. So I will catch you guys in the next video. Regular uploads will keep going. As soon as this nerf gets announced, I will make another video and we'll have another chat. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.